Welcome to Jolly Molly TV. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to finish up all these amazing blocks that you just finished stitching out, and then we're going to sew this wall hanging together. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm just going to move these other blocks to one side. Let's just grab one here. Okay, so if you take a look at your block, you see up close that you have this black outer stitch line all the way around, okay? And sometimes when we stitch this out, the design might pull in a little bit. So that's why at the end of every block, I had you do that outer stitch line one more time. And this is why. So that outer stitch line is going to be straight, where the one inside might have pulled in just a little bit. So we're going to be using the straight outer stitch line to help trim up your blocks, okay? You can use a regular ruler for this. I just use a Quilter Select ruler that's 3 inches by 12 inches, so it's easy to maneuver. You can use any quilt ruler you have. I'm not sponsored by Quilter Select or anything. I just love them because on the back they have that non-slip coating, so you can hold it down without too much pressure and the ruler will stay put. So I have a lot of the other Quilter brand rulers too, but I'm slowly changing everything over to my Quilter Select because it really doesn't take too much to hold it down and the ruler doesn't move off the project. It's really worth it, especially if you have like arthritic hands or carpal tunnel or something. This makes it a lot easier to trim up your blocks. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to look for that black outer stitch line, and I'm going to line up my ruler right on it so I can see that this one's fairly straight up against the book here, and I'm going again on that last black stitch line that you can see. Now for this project, I'm going to use 1/2 inch seam allowances. Normally when you do a quilt, you use a 1/4 inch, and that would be fine too, but for this project, I want to use a 1/2 inch just to make it a little bit easier to press open my seams on the back side, to lay everything flat. I find that with these type of projects, with batting and with Kimberbell, I really like using the 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, so I've moved my ruler over, giving myself that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm right on that 1/2 inch mark, and I'm going to put my hand on my ruler. I've got my rotary cutter, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this block nice and slow. We're not in any race, and put that aside. Okay, so I've got a very nice 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I normally then flip it over to the other side, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. Line up my ruler right on that line, and then move it over to the 1/2 inch mark to give yourself a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That looks great. Cut very slowly. You got this. Always double check that you've got that 1/2 inch seam allowance, because you don't want to cut right on the book. You want to give yourself a 1/2 inch. All right. Now we're going to turn it and do the same thing on this side. I can see that black stitch line right there. Now I'm going to move my ruler 1/2 inch out, right there to that 1/2 inch line, and then gently cut it. Double check. Yes, I've got my 1/2 inch, and then you make your cut. Easy peasy, huh? Just take it slow and steady. Like right now, I can see the inner stitch line, the one that we did in the very beginning, has pulled in just a little bit. I don't want that. I want to look for the outer one, which is just like that. And then I'm going to go 1/2 inch, which is right there. And when you're in doubt, you can move your ruler up, and you can see that, yes, I am on that 1/2 inch line on the ruler, because black thread's a little bit difficult to see. I can even see that I'm lined up this way, so I'm also straight, and I'm over here and I'm lined up. So Then I can very slowly cut my block. There we go. It's a little cockeyed, I can see, so I'm going to freshen that up because this is smaller than that. So let's double check. There we go. I can see it was off just a little bit, so I can trim that little edge up. There we go. Now we're looking good, right? So that's how you trim up your blocks, giving yourself a 1/2 inch seam allowance around that outside black line. Okay? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward through this. I'm going to repeat the same steps that I just did. I'm going to trim up all of the other blocks, okay? And I'll meet you right back here when that's done. These are all trimmed up. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's a little bit longer on this side than it is on that side. That's okay. When we stitch these together, you're going to be using that outer line to sew your block together. So the fact that I'm a little wonky on a 1/2 inch seam allowance, it's not going to matter because it's going to be inside the quilt. Okay, so now what we need to do with all of our blocks is we need to put them in order that we want them to show in the quilt. Now, this is totally up to you. You can be creative. You can decide how you want these blocks to be. And this is where you can just let your personality shine in whichever lineup you would like. go for it. I happen to like the fact that they had the main kind of a focal point in the 5 spaces. So the 4 corners and 1 in the middle. So that's what I think I'm going to do. I might just mimic the way they did it because I really like that setup. And I love the fact that the pumpkin is in the bottom corner. So I definitely want that one there. The frog I love in the center. So yeah, I'm just going to do it the way they have it. I do like that with the books. The raven looking to the left, definitely in the upper left corner. The owl, yeah, I like this. I like the way they have it, so that's the way I'm going to do it. And let's see, Book of Spells goes this way. And Haunting Tales goes there. And then that one goes there. I like that. Okay, is there anything I would want to change? I like the 2 upright books, top and bottom. And then the sideways books here. So yeah, I actually like their layout. I'm going to stick with that. So now what I want you to do is I want you to put these kind of in a reverse order. So this is going to be the last one I sew, second to last, third to last. So they're in order of left to right as I sew them. So this is row 3. Okay, I'm going to put that aside. This is row 2 because I sew again left to right. That's row 2. And this is row 1. So this is going to be sewn first to this one. And then that will be sewn to that one. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. And there you go. So I've now got these row 1, row 2, and row 3. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to get my sewing machine set up. And then I'm going to show you how to sew these blocks together. Okay, now before we can sew these blocks together, we need to fix what I think is a shortage here of stitching on block number 8, the Haunting Tales block. So what I did was I just took a scrap piece of fabric and I went to my sewing machine and I started playing with the zigzag stitch. The zigzag is basically a satin stitch once you tighten up the stitch length and stitch width to what you want. So I started playing with my machine. I don't know if you can see it. This is a regular zigzag stitch over here. And I just started playing with it to tighten it up and then to shrink it sideways to what I think might look good as a binding. Let me do this. What might look good as a binding on this book. Okay. So I got it down to a regular zigzag stitch that has a stitch length of 0.3. That's this way. So it's smushing that zigzag tighter and tighter to get the satin stitch. And that's as low as my machine will go. Then width-wise, I settled on a 4.0. This is a 3.5, and I thought it was a little narrow. I kind of like the look of the little bit thicker. So I'm going to stick with the 4.0. But test on your machine and see what you can get. Try a stitch length of 0.3 and a stitch width of 4.0 on a zigzag stitch. All right. So I'm going to test this out. I'm going to put gold thread in the top of my machine because I want this to be gold. And then I'm going to put black thread on the back side, bobbin down below. And then I'm going to stitch this out and see how it looks. Okay, so I loaded the thread in my machine, and now I did a little test run. I'm glad I did because the first couple times my bobbin wasn't catching that well. So I did a rethread, and now I've got what I think is going to work as a gold binding on this. So now it's time to put this in. I'm going to start where I want to start, and then I'm going to end right at the end here and tie off my thread, and let's see if this is going to work. Keep your fingers crossed here. I think we can do this. All right, so I'm going to lay it down. Actually, I'm going to do the middle one first because the middle one's a little easier to see where I'm going to go and where I need to start. Okay, so I'm going to center it. And I'm going to put the needle down just to see. Yeah, back it up just a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to put it down at the start of the purple, and I'm going to put my needle down. Okay, that looks like where I want to start. Okay, I'm going to do it very slowly. Don't need a speed race on this. Can you see? All right, let's do this. Here we go. Just let it go straight. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to fill that space with something that looks like a book binding, because I think that they forgot to digitize that. It's going nice and slow. That's okay. I would rather it go slow than speed through it and not be the best job I can do. So I'm going super slow. And I can see the needle is literally touching each line of that outline. The purple on the left and the right. I'm almost done. Now it's going to cross over these border stitches. Nice and slow. Get ready to stop it when it reaches the edge of that purple. Let's see, right about now. All right, let's see. Let's see. Are we ready? Woo! Okay, let's go to the other camera. What do you think? I've got some straggler ends there. Let me get those out of the way so we have a clear shot at what it did. Okay. I'm loving it. All right. I didn't start 100%. There's like one stitch difference there, but I'm not going to worry about it. And I would make too much of a mess if I went to try to restart it. So I'm going to go with it. But next time when I start, I actually want to start one more stitch width over on the edge of that purple. But no one's going to know that but me, right? Okay, now let's do the bottom one to get some more practice on this one before I tackle that one. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to screen cam. I hope you can see it all right. Let's go all the way down. See where I want to go. Kind of put those two lines that they did stitch out in the middle. Put my needle down. Nope, I need to go back one more thread length. That's where I messed up last time. How about there? Okay, that's where I'm going to start. Again, do it nice and slow. I've got it centered. Keep the block straight. The machine will do its thing. All you need to do is keep those two lines in the center of that foot, and it'll be as straight as you can get it. There we go. Slow and easy. We're not in any speed race. And this way I can make sure that I'm keeping the block straight as I can. Again, it won't be perfect, but that's okay. I think it looks better with some form of binding on the side of this book than with nothing. So we're getting close. It's almost at the edge of the inner edge of the purple. And okay, now we're going to go to the outer edge of the purple and then get ready to stop. Almost there. And there. Okay, all right. Let's take a look at this. Woohoo! Okay. Whoops. That gold thread says, no, I don't want to be trimmed off. All right. What do you think? I think that looks better than just blank, don't you? All right. That one I was better at the start. But again, no one's going to see that little miss but me. Okay. And now let's do the top one. The top one is hard to see. I'm just going to eyeball, make sure I can see those two lines going across and start it like I did down here. And I think we're going to look okay. All right, let's do it. Let's go back to the, what I call the screen cam, or in this case, the sewing machine cam. All right, so I can eyeball those 2 stitches that are coming up and down. I'm going to try to center those, even though they're a little hard to see. Center that in between the opening of my foot. And go over just the smallest amount. Nope. A little more. And try that. And then I need to go toward me just a hair. Okay, I think we got it. All right, you ready? Okay. Let's put the foot down. We got the foot down already. All right, let's do this. Slow and steady. We got 2 out of the 3 done. Just try to keep those 2 stitches in the center of that open foot. This is hard to see, but you can barely make out those 2 lines that they did stitch the outline, when they stitched the outline of it. So just try to keep that in the center. And you got this. You got this. A little bit more. Hope you can see okay. It's as far as my camera will go on that side, so we're almost there. The main thing is you're going to look at your own machine, but I just kind of want to show you how slow I'm going as to let the machine do this, and then I can kind of control if it gets sideways a little bit to try to make it as straight as I can. All right, now we're almost at the edge. Get ready to stop. A couple more stitches. 1 more. Right there. Trim it. All right. Oops. Dun, 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 dun. I'll take it. It's not 100% perfect, but neither am I. How about that? Okay. I'll take it. Gives a little class. It's a little cockeyed. Just a teeny bit, but that's okay. It looks better than it does without anything on it. It makes it unique. How about that? Okay, so that is how I fixed the missing book bindings on block number 8. Cool. All right. So now let me clean this up and we'll get ready to sew these guys together. Okay, so now that we got that block fixed, now we can start sewing this together. So what I have done is I put my machine back at its defaults, which the easiest way to do is just turn it off and turn it back on again. So my machine is at a 2.5-inch stitch length and a 3.5-inch stitch width. That's basically the standard size stitch that the machine starts with. Okay, I put black thread in the top of my machine and black bobbin down below, because once we sew this together and we open it back up, if there's any pull or stretching, I want the black thread to blend in and match the fabric. You could actually use a slightly different color in your bobbin thread that would make it a little bit easier to see on the back side, like maybe a royal blue. But you got to be careful, because if you use like a hot pink and you open it, you might see some of the hot pink when the seams are spread out. So I try to always stick with a darker thread that would kind of blend in and match with the fabric. Now, if you've got white fabric, obviously you're going to use white top thread and white bobbin thread to match. The trick is too that if we have to take this apart to redo it, I'm going to show you how I rip out my seams going from top and then going from the front. So it wouldn't matter too much if you had difficulty seeing the color thread on the back, because I'm actually going to rip it from the front side if we have to take it out. Okay, hopefully we won't, but I will do a little demo even if we don't on one of them, just to kind of show you how I would rip out the stitches from the front. Okay, so now we're looking at the first 2 blocks that we're going to sew together. Okay, so I have some pins. These are actually the clover, I think the flowers. Yeah, clover flower head pins. Okay, so you just need a couple of these. And then I have the wonderful clover clips, which I absolutely love because when I use pins, I stab myself and I don't want to get blood all over my project. But it's essential to get this started. You actually might need a couple of them. So this is how we're going to stitch these together. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put them together exactly how they're going to go. Just like that. Flip them over right sides together. Then I'm looking for the pin to go through the very corner of this block. And I can actually look on the other side and see that I'm going through the corner. Then I want to go through the corner of the second block. And not stab myself. This one's doesn't want to go through. Hang on. This is why I don't like pins. I don't want to stab myself. Alright. So I got those, and I can kind of open it up and see that I'm off a little bit, so I'm going to do it again. Go through the corner and then go through that corner. There we go. I must have been going through a knot because that one went through so much easier. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here, but the part I really want to line up is the shelf. See that? I want to line this shelf up with that shelf there. So I'm going to go to where I can see, which is right between where those two shelves start, which is between the light beige and the dark beige. And then I'm going to get another pen and I'm going to line up the corner of the first block. Yeah, I'm going through stitches, that's why it's hard. Okay, that looks good. With the corner of the shelf, or excuse me, the corner of the block, which is actually the corner of the shelf as well. Okay. So this one's off a little bit. I can feel it. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to do it again. It's the top of that layer. Okay. I just want to stick it through at this time. All right. So now I'm going to take a clover clip and I'm going to attach the rest of it all the way down. And then just for good measure, I'm going to attach the top and the bottom. All right. And see, my seam allowances weren't 100%, assuming my pin is in the right spot. Now here's a trick that a lot of people don't do. Most people just go to the machine and start sewing. No, 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 no. Let's open it up very gently and see where this is going to line up. Okay, you don't have to press firmly, but I want you to be able to see, is my shelf lined up? Pretty good. I like the shelf. And my top line is lined up. So I'm happy. If you don't check it, then you're increasing your odds of having to take it out later. So just open it up very gently. And you can see if your shelf is lining up and if your top line is lining up. And that means you're a go. All right. If that's the case, I actually take out the pen and I put a couple more clover clips so that this won't accidentally move as I take out the pens. And now I'm ready to stitch these together. Okay. Now there's no guarantee that, you might still have to take it out, but it helps eliminate some of the chances of having to undo it. To the point where now it's going to be a good chance we might be successful. Black bobbin thread down below, and I've got black thread on top of my machine. Now I am just going to stitch right on that outside line, not the inside line, the outside line. That's why at the very end of the blocks, I had you do that outside line one more time, because that is a straight line where the inside line could have gotten pulled in a little bit when the embroidery was happening. But that outside edge is now where you want to sew these blocks together. And I'm going to start all the way at the top of my 1/2 inch seam allowance. And Oops, there we go. And I'm going to back tack a little bit to lock those in. Okay. And there we go. And I'm going to slow it down just a little bit so I can take my clips out. There we go. I can take the next one out. And just stitch on that outside line. Easy peasy. All right. Take this out. Because that outside line is straighter than the inside lines, which are the first few that we stitched in the block. Okay, can you see? All right. So go for that outside stitch line. Okay. Couple more, and I'll take the last one out. Leave that one in, because that one's not going to be in your way. So all the way down to the end, into your seam allowance, and then back tack to lock those stitches in. Okay. All right. So go to the other camera. Okay, moment of truth. Are you ready? Dun, da, da, da. I'll take it. There we go. Does that look good? I like that. Okay. That looks good. It's all the way up. And the line up here is good. There's a little separation on the shelf, but on bookshelves there kind of is anyway when the wood is in between. So I'm not going to fret too much about that. I'll see how the rest of the blocks come together. My hunches are all going to be like that, but we will see as we go along, okay? That's really cool. All right, so in the future, we're going to separate these on the back, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to stitch the next block to this, see how this goes, and then we can press both seams open at the same time, all right? So let's do this again. Make sure you got the right one. This is going to be, in my case, the witch's hat. It's going to go to the right of this. I'm going to do the exact same thing as we did before. Line her up. And normally you could just line it up with your seam allowance. But because we want to get this as close as we can, I line it up with the actual corners of the block with a pin. Just like that. All right. Okay. Then I'm going to come down here, and I'm not going to do the corner first. I'm going to do this bookshelf. And, okay, this time I'm going to go to the top of, whoops, over a little bit more. The top of the beige. And then I'm going to go over here to the top of the beige. All right. Then I can come back here and do the corner. And don't be afraid if it doesn't feel right and it feels off, take your pin out and do it again. It's better to do that than it is to rip out stitches, right? Right. Okay, let's get all these guys out here. And then from this point, it's just easy peasy. You can line this up with a pin if you want, but that's more difficult because it's just a straight edge and you don't have a viewpoint to attach it to, like the top of the shelf or the corners. You know, it's not quite as easy to line up. All right, let's see. Oops. Take that edge one off. Let's see how this is. Okay, the shelf looks good. Actually, I could come down just a smidgy on the shelf. This is a little bit more confusing because the shelf is actually lined up with part of the book. So let me try to come out where the brown is, not the beige. There we go, brown to brown. If you remember, it was a beige, or I think it was called, it wasn't sawdust, khaki, I think it was called, that was stitched as a accent on top of the bookshelf. So I'm trying to line it up with that. All right. Now let's see. That's better, yeah, because see, this one has extra on the top of the shelf with the book, and I was lining it up with that and not the actual shading on the shelf. Okay, that shelf looks good. The top is off a little bit, so we're going to redo it. Yep. We're going to redo it because this top is not lined up. The new block is a little bit higher than the old block. So in that case, we redo it. And maybe I don't have to redo the shelf. Again, this is easier to redo than it is to take out all those stitches. And then open it up and test drive it. That's better. The top is lined up and the shelf looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to put some more binder clips on here, and then I can take the pins out without stabbing myself. There we go. Okay, so now we can go to the machine. That one moved. It's okay. That's why we put so many, just in case one moves. It's okay. All right, so now let's go to the machine. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to line that up with the outside edge, stitch a few, back tack to lock it in, and now we're going to sew on that outside line all the way down. All the way down. This project doesn't have sashing in between the blocks. A couple of the projects that we're going to do in the future on this channel will have sashing in between these two blocks. But this one does not. It's actually just block attached to block right on this outside line with no sashing in the middle. You could actually do sashing if you wanted to, and then it makes it look like a window. But I think because this is a bookcase, it might be kind of weird, well, maybe not, to have a bookcase on a windowsill. You don't know, right? You can do whatever you want. Whatever looks good to you, that's what we do. All right. Okay, let's go back to the other camera. There we go. Pick those up, otherwise they'll end up on the floor. Ask me how I know, right? Right. All right, moment of truth. Here we go. I'll take it. Yeah, and there is a little, like a little separation on the bookshelf, just like there was on the first one. So I'm going to go with it. Top is lined up. I am happy. Look at that. Woohoo. Put it under so you can see the whole thing. That's cool. Yeah, see, there's a little separation. Just like there would be like a bookshelf had a piece of wood in between. So that'll be standard throughout there, all of it. That'll be really, really good. I'll take it. I love it. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to fast forward and I'm going to sew the rest of the rows together like this. Then I'm going to go to my ironing board all at one time and I'll show you how to press the seams open. But since we know now how to do this step, let's put this one up here, put this one aside, and let's do row 2 and row 3 the exact same way. All right, so let's fast forward through this, and we're going to sew these 3 blocks together. I'll meet you right back here when that's done. Look at this. Isn't that amazing? Love that. Okay, so now I'm going to get my ironing board out and I'm going to show you how to press open the seams on the back side. But you did it. You sewed all the blocks together in a row. So we're going to press the seams and then all that's left is to sew the rows together. You've got this. Okay, isn't this looking amazing? So we've got the 3 rows done. This is the last row. I'm going to put that aside. This is the middle row. And this is the first row. Isn't this so cool? I'm so excited to finish this up. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to flip this over. And we're going to open our seams up. And the reason I did the 1/2 inch seam allowance is because it's a lot easier to open your seams with a little bit more fabric. It is less bulky because the 1/4 inch would have all the bulk right here in the one spot, and it's easier to press this down. So I'm going to put my iron on the high setting, wait for that to heat up, and I'm going to go ahead and press this one with my fingers open like this. So when the iron gets ready, I'm going to be able just to press this down nicely. Again, this is why I love the 1/2 inch seam allowances for projects like this. It's so much easier to open these seams up. All right, so again, my iron, I want dry iron, no steam, and I'm putting it on high setting for cotton. Okay, so make sure that you have your embroidery also facing down. I know it makes sense, but just a reminder, embroidery goes face down, and you just want to press the seam open. You don't want to put your iron on this part because you really don't need to. Just focus on pressing this seam down. The one main reason why you don't want to press your embroidery when it's face up anyway is because you don't want to smush down, as I call it, the threads. If you were to press it right side facing up, you're going to be pushing those threads that are kind of a nice 3D element there, and you're going to be pressing them flat into the material, and you don't want that. So I only press my embroidery with the embroidery facing down, and I only do the seam allowance area like that. And I got a couple little wrinkles there. It's not really a big deal. Press it out. There we go. The main thing is that you're flattening your seam, so when we go to sew these rows together, that will be nice and flat. Okay, now let's do the middle row, face down. Always finger press it first. That gives you a better chance of success when you're dealing with a hot iron. If you finger press it first, like that, and then the iron can just kind of fall into that groove and press itself all the way out. And if you also see when you press your 1/2 inch seam allowances down, they come out a lot flatter. When you do the 1/4 inch, sometimes it's a challenge to get those 1/4 inch seams to lie flat, because don't forget, you've got fabric, you've got batting, and then you've got a little bit of stabilizer. So it turns out to be a little bit of bulk that is pretty challenging to deal with in just a 1/4 inch. But now this lies nice and flat. Okay, so that's the middle row. And now let's do the bottom row. See how easy this is? Again, I sewed that little part down. That's okay. I do feel it's much easier to deal with a 1/2 inch seam allowance in projects like this. A normal pieced quilt, or maybe a foundation paper pieced quilt, I would stick with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. But for this type of project where you have thickness, a 1/2 inch makes it so much easier. All right, almost done here. Whoops. Wants to pop open. And it doesn't really matter that much because this is also going to be in another seam allowance when you sew the rows together. Okay, so that looks great. All right, one other thing I want to mention while we're right here before we sew this together is if you happen to see one of the black stitch out lines from the very beginning of the quilt here. See if you can see this one. See that right there? That's from the first and second and third stitch outs. And because this was kind of embroidery heavy, it pulled that stitch line in a little bit. And the embroidery will do that when it's heavy stitching. Okay, and this was a really amazing owl here. So all you got to do is take your seam ripper and gently take out that black thread. Make sure you're dealing with only the black thread. There we go. So I started it. And then you can see just kind of massage the fabric and the holes go away. So I would do that with that whole line area so that that line doesn't show. And then check any of your other blocks, and if they have that, just take your seam ripper and slowly put that out. Massage the fabric where the holes were, and the holes will close up for the fabric. And then you don't see that thread line right there. See it? Yeah. Okay, so take those out if you need to, and flatten all your seams on the back side. And I'll meet you right back here when that's done. Okay, so now that we have all of our seams pressed open on the back side, and if there was any pulling of the thread, I've taken out the ones that I need to take out, so it's looking good. So now I can line this up as this being row number 1 and this being row number 2. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, and this is my sew side. Okay, double check it. This is row 1 and this is row 2. I'm going to flip it over, and now this is going to be my sew side. I'm going to do the same thing that I did when we sewed one block to another. We're just going to pretend this is just one big block. So I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to put it in the corner, and then I'm going to put it in the corner of the second row. Again, I can peek open and see this is row 1 and that's row 2. Later, girl. Okay, So now I'm going to go block by block all the way across. And the main thing that you're looking to line up is just the corners. There's no real shelf to line up with each other across. You're just going to line up one corner and the other corner. And you're going to say, wait a minute, the seam allowance is there. No problem. I'm going to push that back for a second. And I'm going to get in the corner. And then I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to get in the corner. Okay? Let's move this guy out of the way a little bit so he doesn't move all over the table. Okay, so now I'm focusing just on this block. Okay, I can see that my pins are straight. Get out my clover clips, and I'm going to, with those pins being straight, I'm going to line up these two blocks. Okay. Oops. Okay. Come over here and I can kind of feel it. The pins should be straight, not at an angle. The pins should be straight. Then you can feel if there's any excess fabric and you can line them up. Okay, now I'm going to do this just like we do the other ones. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to take a look. It's a little bit more challenging, but I can see this side's lined up and that side's lined up. So I'm happy with those. Okay. So now I'm going to attach the end and take that pin out. Okay. Take that pin out. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to line up my seams. I've got a seam here and a seam on the back. And if you've done this correctly, your seams should nest. Let me get this up to the camera so you can see. See that? The center is exactly at the center of the one on the front and the one on the back. And that's what we want. We want those seams to nest right up against each other. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing, but this one I know is good. So now I'm going to come in this corner and I'm going to put my pin in the corner and put my pin in the corner. Okay, flatten everything out and attach my clover clips. This in a way is easier than doing an individual block because I don't have a shelf to line up. Okay, put that pin out of the way. And then I'm going to open it very gently and just eyeball. This is lining up and this is lining up. So I'm happy with that. Okay. My pin is straight. I'm going to take that out. And now I'm going to look at my seams. Can you see that? The center of this seam, just a smidge off. I can bring it over. There, I'm lining up the center of this seam with the center of that seam. Right on, right? You got this. Clip that in place. Now we're going to do the last one. Take a pin, put it in the corner, put it in the corner, line that pin up, push down and feel that the fabric is flat all the way across this block. And I'm going to put my clover clips, make sure that pin is straight all the way across. Okay, oops. Okay, now I can go ahead and take that pin out. And get this one off too. Oops. Alright, and now let's see how this looks. Moment of truth. Alright, see this at an angle here. That one's lining up and that end is lining up. So I am happy with how it's lining up. Okay, so I'm going to attach one at the bottom. And I'm going to attach one more up here until I get everything going here. All right. And I can double check, except the ones on the end prevent me from double checking this one. That looks good. All right. So now all I want you to do is go to your sewing machine, and I want you to sew on this outside line right here. And we're going to attach this all together in one swoop, and you're going to have 2 rows together. All right, so let's sew that together, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. All right. Dun da da da. All right. I think we got it. Yeah, we'll be pressing those seams open so this bulk will go away. But I'm lined up over there, lined up there, and I'm lined up there. Okay. I am happy except for this corner, okay, because this corner you can actually see some of my line, whereas over here you can't. See this right here? I can see some of that. So now I'm going to show you my little trick for taking your seam ripper and opening up and taking out those stitches, okay, without having to go to the back and try to look for the black. I'm going to take these stitches out to about here so that I can realign that, because that one didn't stitch as well as it should have. It's off a little bit. All right, so all you need to do, and I'm doing this kind of upside down and backwards here, is I'm going to come back here and I can see where I secured the stitch. Okay, I'm going to take that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate back here a little bit because I can see the start of this. This is where we started. That's why we said go all the way to the end. So I know this part is strictly having to do with sewing these together. And see, I'm able to pull it apart there just a little bit. See that? I'm able to pull it apart. So now, see if I can do this so you can see it on camera. I've got it separated. So instead of going to the back and trying to dig through the black lines and figure out which is which, I can see the black thread right on the front. And I put my finger under it, just don't stab your finger. And see how what I'm doing? I'm grabbing just the bobbin and the thread, those 2 threads of what I sewed together, and look how fast I can take this thing apart. And I'm not digging on the back. I'm going a little bit further than I'm supposed to. Let's see, look at that. I'll go a little bit more. See how easy that is? And you're doing it from the front. Okay, so that is golden. So now I can come back over here. I went a little bit too far, but that's okay. I wanted to show you the process and how easy that is versus trying to go on the back and dig in threads that you have already sewn into the block. This is so much easier. Okay, then I get all my extra threads up. so they don't go all over my shirt, which they normally do anyway. Okay, so now we're ready to flip this back over, and I'm going to reline it up, see if I can correct the mistake I made where it got off just a little bit. Okay, I got a big knot of thread there on the corner, so it's a little hard to get through. Okay, I'm in the corner, that's good. And now I want to go in the corner of the shelf. Okay, flatten it out, make sure that pin is nice and straight. And now I can reconnect it with my clover clips. Okay, let me get this over here so it's a little easier for me to handle. Flatten her out just like that. And then I'm going to attach it. With the clover clips. I don't think I need to go back that far. How far? Yeah, I do, because I stitched it, or I opened it right here. So one more. So when I start stitching it, I'll just start stitching it from here on the seam and go back that way. But before I do that, I want to check this out. I want to make sure that I'm going to be lined up this time. Yeah, that's going to be much better lined up that way. Okay, so now I can see my pin actually isn't straight, isn't flat. So make sure it is. There we go. And I want one more clover clip. Okay, make sure that pin's straight. Take it out. I'm going to eyeball it just to make sure. I think we're good. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and sew it from here. And this isn't 100% flat, not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to sew it from here all the way down and reattach it. Okay. Put my foot down. Right on that black stitch line. Secure it. Okay, now we're going to go to town. Here we go. And this is going to happen to you throughout your quilting embroidery adventure, where you're going to have to take something out because it doesn't line up 100% the way you like it. And that's how easy it is to take that out. Alright. I'm off a little bit off the black line. That's alright. Let's get back on it. There we go. If you don't like it, just take it back out and fix it so you are happy with it. Okay, and let's stitch. Okay. Alright. Moment of truth. Much better. There we go. Now it's solid. There's no black stitch line showing all the way to the edge. I am happy with that. Yay! Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to attach row 3 to rows 1 and 2. Isn't this amazing? Look at that. It's coming together. All right. So now I'm going to grab row 3. Yes, that's definitely row 3. We're looking great. Going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip it over. And this is my sew side. Okay. So I've got that. I can, again, flip it over knowing it's upside down. Yes, I've got it in the right direction. It's always better to check than it is to have to redo it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this. I'm going to do the same process I just showed you. And we're going to attach row 3 to rows 1 and 2. And I'll meet you right back here when that's done. as you're going on here, it's going to get a little hard to steer it. So I just put a little pressure with this hand. I'll lift it up to make sure that the quilt is going to be straight on that line, and then I apply a little bit of pressure with my left hand just to kind of keep it in gear, because otherwise it'll steer itself way off. They actually have quilting gloves that have little grippies on them. That would be a good time to use this to be able to help you drive this in the right direction. All right, lift it up, and here we go. Because otherwise you got to put kind of a lot of pressure with your left hand as you do this. The heavier the quilt gets, the harder it is to steer it. If you have like a sew steady table off here, it's even better because it will keep the quilt upright, higher, so you don't have to drive it as much, as I call it. But this quilt is luckily not too bad because it's only 9 blocks. So it's doable. All right. If you're going to do a quilt twice this size, I would definitely recommend the quilting grippy gloves. They have little grips on them to help you hang on to this. Okay, we're almost done. You got this. All right, and when it gets to the end, it's a little bit easier to steer because the weight is on the table. It's not on you trying to support it, you know. Now it's on the table, so it's not too hard to drive. Alright, we're almost done. Make sure you back tack at the end. You want to lock these stitches in place. You don't want them coming out later in your quilt. Alright. Alright, here we go. Moment of truth. So he's a little nervous when this happens, but you got this. Ready? First block is good. Second block is good. Third block is good. I'll take it. Yahoo! Okay, and remember, if yours isn't, that's not a big deal. We can go ahead and take out, like I showed you, take out this section right here, which you know is what you just stitched, and then kind of rip it open, and then you can take the threads out from the top of the quilt, and you can do it in under a minute. It's amazing. Okay, this is looking so cool. All right, so now I'm going to put the sewing machine off to the one side. I'm going to get my ironing station out, and we're going to press the seams open on the back side. You got this. All right, so I've got my pressing station out here. I've turned my embroidery face down so the back of it's facing up, and you can see here I caught a couple of the seam allowances as I went through there. Not a big deal because that was on the bottom side as I stitched it. It's not going to add much bulk to this, so I'm not going to worry about undoing that. Now I'm just going to finger press the seam open on the first block, and my iron's going to get hot enough. I've got it on the high setting, dry iron. I'm going to press this seam open. So just be very careful because you know the iron is very, very hot. I just do the first block. Okay. Then I'll work on the second block. Finger press it open. This is so much easier than 1/4 inch seam allowance because you have fabric to actually move, to actually utilize when you're pressing it open and pressing it down. And I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on this side. But that way I'm not leaning over hot fabric. Yeah, 1/4 inch is a challenge. You can do it, but it's definitely a challenge to open it and then keep it open and put the iron on it and get it nice and flat. The 1/2 inch works wonders. Look at that. No problem whatsoever. Isn't that great? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for this one. And just open it up and finger press it. Doesn't have to be perfect. What you're trying to accomplish is to get this as flat as possible so the other side of your project will lie flatter. Okay, that's the goal of doing this. Oops, it's going to be hot. Okay, is to try to get your front side of the project to be as flat as possible. All right, and that's why I press my seams open. I don't press them to one side like you would do in a quilt, you know, press to the dark side. I don't have to do that with the embroidery. You want to open them and have your seams flat. So that way your bulk is spread out over the project. It's not all on one side. Because remember, in a regular quilt, you just have fabric. Okay, this, you've got fabric, you've got fusible, you've got stabilizer, and maybe a little bit of batting possibly in there, on the inside of this. And then, of course, your fabrics times 2 because you got the seam allowance and the actual block. So you have a little bit more bulk than what you would in a standard quilt. All right. So then what I do, this one's not quite as flat as I'd like it. I'm going to come across this way and do one more time across the midsection because that's where your biggest bulk is going to be, where the 2 seam allowances meet. Okay, all right. Turn that off. There we go. All right, let's get my ironing platform out of the way. And are you ready for some amazing, amazing blocks? Look at that. Woohoo! And look how nice and flat your seams are. Okay, and mind you, we've never pressed on the top. We're only pressing on the back because this way your stitches will still be nice and three-dimensional and poofy. You're not flattening out those stitches. Look at that. You can't quite see it all in this picture. But isn't that amazing? You did a great job. Look at that. That's so cool. Now we're at the point where you're going to be finishing this project up. And you can finish this up as you see fit. You can just add a black border to the outside and bind it. You could go light brown fabric, add borders on the outside so it kind of looks like a bookcase shelving, you know, with the wood on the sides and the top. If you want to make it like into your wall hanging, I would highly recommend putting a light layer of batting on the back side before you place your fabric, because if you place your backing fabric right on the back of this, you're going to feel these seam allowances, especially here in the 4 corners. So get a very light, thin batting, and you can put that on the back and sandwich it like you normally would a quilt. Put your batting down and put the backing fabric on top of that, and then you're not going to feel any of these seam allowances on the back of your quilt. Okay, that's what I would do. Then you just add a border and you can bind it as you normally will. If you want to quilt it, I would stitch in the ditch after you've sandwiched it, so that way you're connecting basically the 3 layers together. Just stitch in the ditch, probably with black thread, so it would blend in with the project. And then you can hang it up on your wall. You can add little hangers on the top if you want. You can finish it as you like. Okay. And how I'm going to finish mine off, you're asking? I'm going to show you how, in a couple bonus videos, how to add embroidered borders to this project. Kimberbell.com is a different company than what made this project. This is done by Urban Threads. But Kimberbell.com has amazing background quilting designs. And in those designs, they also make borders. And they make borders in all different sizes. And you can use them on your 5x7 hoop, your 8x8 hoop, etc. And you can make them in sections and actually put embroidered borders on this project. So just to give you an idea, let me get my prep work here for the borders. I'm going to show you, just to give you a teaser of what I have in mind, okay? So if you stay tuned for the bonus videos, this is what I'm going to be showing you how to make. I'm going to do an inside border. Let me take this over here for a second. I'm going to do a 1-inch inside border, which will be about there, which is going to be purple. And on this is going to be an embroidered design that hopefully, in my mind, I've chosen will kind of mimic the sides of a book, but in kind of an X design. I think that's going to be really cool. And I think I'm going to do it with gold thread. Then that will end up being a 1-inch border. And then I'm going to do an outside black border, which will also have an embroidered design on it in a color I have yet to choose. That will be embroidered as well. And both of these I'm going to embroider with the Kimberbell designs. I'm going to show you. This is a little teaser, but I will show you the designs in the bonus video. So that's how I think I'm going to finish out this project, is with these bonus borders. So that takes a little while to do. So it won't be coming out in my next scheduled video. It'll be probably 2 videos or maybe 3 videos after that. But I will show you the bonus border. So in case you want to use it on this project or on any project in the future, you will be able to, and you'll know how. Okay. So I'm super happy that you have finished this project. Look at this. You can't quite see it all on this table, but I will do a cover shot for the thumbnail so that you'll be able to see all of this. But I'm so proud of you. You did an amazing job. And I hope that you love this project as much as I do. So please stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun projects, the bonus videos on the border, and more projects I've got planned. I have a Christmas project similar to this planned that's coming up soon. So there's lots of fun projects in the future. So please stay tuned for all those. And I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. And until I see you next time, take care and happy stitching. Bye-bye.